Okay, this is my video showing how to repair a flat tire on a Zero MX motorcycle. I'm going to show you everything we need to do this. This is our trusty Zero Motorcycles tool pouch. You got wrenches, cable ties, the all-important Allen key. We will need, I'm not sure which size that is, but we're going to need 2 of those. And these little punches are going to be useful for knocking the axle out without scratching it. Spare tube, which is a bit of a special tube because I filled it with silicone after I got a nail through the tire the last time, riding in a place maybe I shouldn't have been. Somebody dropped some nails there as a welcome present for the off-road set. Got our pump there and a little rubber hammer, and here's our flat tire. Okay, so what we've got going on down here are some axle bolts and pinch bolts down here. So you're going to have to loosen off both of those. It's a good idea to get rid of the mud that might have accumulated in there so you don't round out those Allen keys. And you got some on either side. First thing you want to do is take off the axle bolts and then loosen the pinch bolts. If you loosen the pinch bolts first, the axle can turn without loosening when you're trying to loosen the axle bolts. So we're gonna grab our Allen key. Not sure what size it is, it's not labeled. Oh, there it is. 6mm, made in the USA. Okay, so our 6mm Allen key. Get that in there. And counterclockwise. I used Loctite the last time I did this, so I'm expecting it's going to be pretty tight. Alright, that's not coming. Let's try the other side. There we go. Okay, so the reason for that is that actually on the 2012 MX, the rear axle is a single piece. It's only got a bolt on the right side, and on the left side, as you're going to see when I punch the axle out, it's this is actually part of the axle rod. Now before we actually punch the axle out, we are going to take the chain off. This is loose enough that you can actually just, I'm going to switch the camera around and show you, you can thread it right off. It's pretty tight, but it will come. You can get it off the teeth. Keep it slack. There it goes. And the chain is off. So now it's time to remove or loosen off the pinch bolts down there. I believe they're the same size. Yes, they're the same size as the axle bolts. Not too tight there, that's nice to feel. You don't need to take them all the way out. just loose enough that gap on the bottom opens up and the axle is no longer being held in place by the pinch bolts. I'll leave it to your imagination to do the right side. Now I've removed the chain and loosened off the pinch bolts. I've got my little dowel, which I'm going to use to punch out the axle. There it goes. The nice thing about the dowel is it holds the wheel in place until you're completely ready to take it out. And here comes the axle on the other side. So this is what I was saying before, that the axle is actually one piece with the left bolt. Put that somewhere it doesn't get too dusty. Now I'm going to go ahead and slide out the wheel. You want to be careful that once the disc is clear of the brakes, you don't squeeze the rear foot brake at any point. That can damage the brakes, and it makes it really hard to get the brakes back into alignment. Taking the dowel out. Here it comes, nice and easy. You've got some bearings, they tend to fall out, so you want to maybe set them aside so they don't go missing. And there's our wheel. Once you've got the wheel off, you're going to need a set of these tire irons to get the tires off. There's lots of other videos on how to take a tire off, so I'm going to skip that part. One thing you really want to be careful of, though, is not pinching the tube. I did that the first time I did my motorcycle flat tire repair, and yeah, it'll set you back another 60-70 bucks by the time labor and materials are all in. Okay, I'm going to interrupt the tire changing intermission to point out a couple things that I found. One is this nut here that's on the valve stem should stay on it when it goes in the tube. I wasn't sure about that, whether you should take it off and screw it on from the outside, but it stays on, goes on from the inside, and then you put the other nut on after it goes through the rim. And the other thing is I was struggling to get the valve stem through the hole, and I found that putting the tube entirely seated inside the rim first is more effective than trying to squeeze it through the way you do with a mountain bike tire, putting the valve through first and then seating the tube. So hopefully that helps you guys out. So just to show that I know what I'm talking about, I've got the stem valve going through the... Just to show you what I mean, I've got the valve stem there nicely lined up with the hole, and that was a lot easier to do with the tube seated. I'm just going to push it right through now. I need both hands for that. Alright, another little update. I was finding it virtually impossible to get the tire seated around the rim, to get it over with my tire irons there. So I thought I would try to seat the inside of the rim closer, sorry, the inside of the tire closer to the rim, and that seems to be helping. It wouldn't go, it was stuck around the edge of the rim, but if I step on it a few times, that's pressing it down far enough that hopefully this will go over the lip. Yes, indeed, that trick of seating the tire around the middle of the rim gave me the clearance I needed. And I'm just going to show you the last couple steps here. Getting it completely seated, being careful not to pinch the tube. And there we go. Tire is seated, tube is intact. Now we're just going to reverse the process of taking it off. Put the bearings back in the wheel and put the dowel through. Makes it easier to put the axle in following the dowel. Put the chain on and tighten all those bolts in the reverse order, and we're done, and I'll show you the final result in a moment. A couple more things to mention. When you put the axle back on, it's a good idea to put some grease on it, and then the order that you want to tighten up the axle bolt and the pinch bolt is the same order that you loosened it. So you actually tighten the axle bolt first and then the pinch bolt. And you want to remember on this one to tighten that side because that side is not a nut. It's a good idea to put a little bit of Loctite Blue 242 on there. Don't want to have your axle slipping out on a big hit. The wheel is fixed and installed. I'm going to pump it up. Now, because this is the silicone tube, this is my first time experimenting with a post-pneumatic tube, let's call it. No air, except that I realized after filling it that the silicone needs air to set. So what I think I'm going to try is put the valve nut on. It's a good thing to do. Yeah, but what I'm debating is whether to fill it with air, because if I put some air in, not only will I get the pressure I need, but the air in the tube should help the silicone set. When I built this tube, I put a hole in it, widened the hole that the nail had put in there first. This is an old tube that had gotten punctured, and then I used the silicone nozzle, stuck it through the hole, and that's how I filled it with silicone to begin with. So that hole's still in there, and I put some tarp tape, nice black tarp tape that I got at Canadian Tire. Good stuff. It's better than duct tape if you're looking for something that's nice and smooth. Duct tape would probably work too, but that's what's holding the hole shut right now. And I'm a little worried that with the wear and tear going around and the constant rotation and compression, that the unset silicone is going to start wearing through that hole and maybe coming out in the seams in the tape. On the other hand, if I put more air in there, that increases the pressure, and that'll tend to also force the silicone out the hole. So it's sort of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. So I've decided what I'm going to do is actually put a small amount of air in to help the silicone start to set, but not so much to build up the PSI to the point that it's pushing through the hole. And then maybe ride it gently for a few days, increasing the pressure, letting the silicone slowly set as I inflate the tire. It's a bit of a prolonged process, but I'm hoping that this tube is going to last years. And once the silicone actually does set, I mean, that's just a nice gooey kind of plush material in there, and it's got nowhere else to go. So I don't know if you've ever had that feeling when the tire's starting to go flat. You don't need a lot of pressure in there. So what I'm hoping is that just that amount of silicone that I put in the tube, just to make it, give it the shape, will stay in there and stand me in good stead for years to come. I'll post another video about that when I have an update, and in the meantime, ride on. Alright, I thought I'd give you a sample of what it actually feels like to ride on my new silicone tire. And I did give it one test already, I didn't want to fail on camera. And yeah, it's a little bumpy off the top, a little bit, not too much. But once you get up to about 30 kph, the bumpiness goes around. I don't know whether that's centripetal force pushing the silicone to the edge of the tube. That would be my guess. But yeah, it smooths out pretty well. I'll show you how it is.